When we look at channels, what we're looking at is how we communicate with customers. How do we reach them? The second part of channels is distribution. How does our customer receive our product or service? That's distribution. So some examples of this, for instance, in terms of how we reach customers, can be things like social networks, maybe LinkedIn, search engines, things like Google. When people search, are we in their search results? You've also got then e-commerce stores, internet, just on a broad basis, physical stores, billboards, mobile apps, and even affiliates, people that make money as they sell onwards a product or service. And the key questions around channels are, how do we reach them? How are our channels integrated and which one works best? Because what we want to do is focus our resources, our energy and activities towards maximising how we reach our customers. So we're going to take a bit more of a look at this. The key points are that often customers don't just simply use one channel. So if you just focused your marketing, for instance, on LinkedIn, you'd probably fail. Customers use a whole range of channels, a range of ways of finding information and different ways in which we need to communicate with them. For existing customers, email might be the main way we communicate. It might be that if we've got an account management team, it might be over the phone with an account manager. How and when we reach our customers is vital to understanding two things. One, how we sell our product or service, and then how we distribute it. So for B2B, it can be very different channels than business to consumer. So LinkedIn, for instance, might form a key strategic channel for how you reach certain types of business buyers. A good tool to understand how we actually get into understanding the channels and communication process is to use something like the customer journey map. And understanding a customer journey, particularly in the business-to-business context, is about matching buying decisions to channels and the different stages of the buying process. So in other words, how does a customer first find out about our product or service? Then the next step might be, what's their initial need for information? How do we provide that? Do we use webinars, white papers? What information do we need to give them to help them make a decision about the product or service we offer? So understanding each part of the customer journey, how they buy, is a key part of understanding channels. Distribution channels can be very different though. Distribution channels can be digital, for instance, if you're buying an e-book, as opposed to a physical book. And products and services often aren't sold in the same place. So you've got physical products that obviously are quite often sold either through online shops or in physical shops. You've got digital products that are primarily sold online. You've got physical services that are delivered in person often. And you've got digital services. So understanding the channels is really about understanding the sales and marketing process. And you can actually innovate around this. By changing the channel, by changing the way you do things, you can actually innovate a business model and create a point of difference versus your competitor. So in terms of physical and sales channels, you've got, for instance, own shops versus dealing through, say, a supermarket. So people like Apple have their own shops. They decided not to just be swamped and confused by selling their products in a separate store. And so the whole Apple store is built around the brand, the experience that customers have, and that forms a key differentiator versus some of their competitors. Same for Tesla. And then we've got this new distribution channels. Just to say that distribution channels, just like sales channels, change over time. Amazon is looking at how they can use drones now to deliver products. You've got digital product services being delivered via Alexa now. So the way things change and the dynamic of that is an evolving one. And when you're developing new business models or looking to innovate, sometimes you have to rethink the channel, not just the proposition or product or service you're creating. Tesla disrupted its market in lots of different ways. It wasn't just about the car itself. They decided to actually cut out car dealers. Now, car dealers clearly make a margin on the sale of a car. So that's one of the reasons that Tesla decided to go. Having said that, Tesla's shops add some additional costs. But what it does do is allow Tesla to control their brand in their own way. And they cut out the middlemen here. So Tesla sells directly to customers as opposed to going through car dealerships. The next block, part of the business model canvas, is customer relationships. And again, business to business is quite different than business to consumer. One of the key things about customer relationships is that customer expectations about their relationship with an organisation often changes, it evolves. Normally, as competition increases, their expectation of what they expect in a relationship increases. And often, customer service, how you deal with customers, how you respond, how quickly you respond, how well you communicate is a key part of how you compete. So one of the things that you need to consider is how much does the customer service element add to the costs of the business? How does it fit with the business goals? So different levels of customer might have and require different customer relationships because of the level of transactions and spend. You might have small customers. You can't afford to give them an account manager. The costs of an account manager dedicating a lot of time to a small business doesn't make sense. But for a large international client, that might be an absolute requirement. The other thing to think about is what part of that relationship can you automate? How easy can you make it for customers to help themselves? There's lots of different aspects to customer relationship and how you think about this in terms of innovating a business model. There are lots of different ways companies use to change or evolve the customer relationship. Of course, one of the key goals within any business is not just to get customers, but is to keep them. Not only keep them, but grow their revenue. And grow might mean that you're trying to sell more services to them, or more projects. One of the ways in which you want to do this is to try and keep them as long as you can. And you do that through a number of different mechanisms, and we'll explore that later on in this course. But some of those that I'll talk about now are by innovating how you provide customer service, personalizing a service towards a customer, using automation, building a community around a particular set of customers. Maybe that community provides help for each other. That removes costs from your own customer service levels. So what are the different types of customer relationships? We have everything ranging from personal assistance. We have self-service. This is where you've got frequently asked questions sections on websites. You've got AI chatbots now that when people ask questions, it works through and looks at the text that people type in and then provides relevant answers. You've got automated services, large-scale services based on telephones, based on numbers that you enter, that prompt you to go through a certain path and then either connect to the right person or a different department. I've mentioned communities already. You've got long-term relationships versus transactional. If somebody buys from you once and once only, maybe you don't put as much effort in. Not effort, but you don't put as much resources behind that because of the costs again. There's such a thing within businesses as switching costs. How easy or difficult it is for customers to change to an alternative supplier. And obviously, within service business, that's a key aspect. If you do a really good job of becoming and understanding a customer, it becomes a lot harder for them to change. They've got to educate a new supplier. They've got to inform them about how and what type of service they need. And if you customize a service, that makes it even harder to switch. So this is just a very simple example. This is Facebook. And as you can imagine, with billions of people using Facebook, Facebook can't personalize the service. It has to rely on self-service. And of course, they do have automation processes. So they've got help sections. But one of the important things to remember is, in terms of customer segments, the way Facebook makes money is through advertising. One of their key customer segments is advertising agencies. And of course, for those companies are spending millions of dollars or pounds or euros every single month with Facebook. For those people, they want to help them maximize their return on investment. So in other words, for every spend, they want to make sure that there are sales related to that they get and reach the audience they want. That drives them to have a global sales force that manages and deals with ad agencies. Of course, those are the big spenders, but Facebook provides equally a set of services to businesses. Any small business can use Facebook advertising. For those people, they wouldn't have an account manager. A lot of those processes are automated. In terms of the channels they use things like internet, the mobile app. There are also developer apps and media. But it's the customer relationship is tailored differently to different customer segments. In terms of revenue streams, we want to make and generate money from an income from selling our product or service. And our product or service can be maybe transactional, in which case people buy it, use it, or it can be a recurring revenue. And what we're going to explore in a lot more detail later on in this course is the revenue model, how and when we can actually generate different types of revenue. But we'll explore a bit of that now. One of the key things is the pricing. How do we price in the market? And obviously we need to be aware of our competitors. But we can innovate and maybe do things differently in our revenue model versus our competitors. So, as an example, increasingly you will see in the markets subscription models. And that moves the idea of paying one large sum at any one time to small, more incremental payments. And so you can see the difference, for instance, between PayPal and Klarna. Klarna lets people pay in 3 payments versus a single payment, which helps consumers, for instance, spread the costs over 3 months. It doesn't hurt them as much. Klarna has become a multi-billion-dollar business just on that one simple change in terms of their revenue model. But there are lots of other revenue models and streams and different ways of thinking about how we can generate models. There are advertising, there's consulting models, and each of these create different ways in which we price things in the marketplace. when and how we collect the money. Experiences, licensing is a regular set of payments, normally annually. We've got product subscriptions, where people pay on a regular basis. We've got service subscriptions, metered services. These all change and can change how you innovate a business model. So here are a few examples. What is transaction-based revenue? It's basically people pay as and when they need it. A service revenue is pretty similar. People use a service for a set period of time. Could be short, could be long. We've got project, which is very much fits to architecture, which is where revenue is generated for the duration of a project, and payments are made normally in installments during the project. And then you've got this idea of recurring revenue. And increasingly, companies are looking for how and where we can get recurring revenue, because recurring revenue makes it more predictable. In other words, we can predict in the long term how much money we're going to get and when we're going to get it. So a lot of emphasis in terms of business innovation nowadays is looking for ways of getting repeatable revenue generation. And we'll explore that in more detail as we go through this course. Now, we come on to activities. So what are we going to do? How and what activities are required to develop our value proposition? What activities do we need to actually generate customer experiences? Don't forget, when we're in the service business, it's not just simply about buying a service. It's about how we wrap ourselves around the customer, make it easy for them, delight the customer at every stage. So these activities often require specialist skills and knowledge. And what we want to do is focus on those activities that mean we generate the most value for our customers. We don't want to do everything though, and that's where we want to use partners. So what sort of activities are there when we look at this section of the business model canvas? Well, if you're a manufacturer, it's all about production. And that could be anything from something like product design through to inventory control, maintenance of machines. There's lots of activities that we need to think about if we're a manufacturer. If we are into knowledge and applying our knowledge as a service, then we have such things as consultancies, private clinics and healthcare. If we're a platform, then it's about how we operate that platform. It's about the software as a service, it's about infrastructure. Do we need to use Google or Amazon if we want to have a global platform that reaches all countries? Process. How do we actually manage cash, loans, debt, for instance? And marketing. What are the activities that we need around that? Are they central to us, or are we going to outsource them? A lot of companies outsource their marketing to advertising and marketing agencies, but others retain it internally because it's so critical to what they do. So let's just take a couple of examples. In terms of Netflix is a platform business. It's streaming of video content. Now, one of the things Netflix do is it has to reach a global audience, and it increasingly is expanding across different geographies. To differentiate itself, it creates and it hires and outsources some of these activities. But other times it makes a key focus for it is the platform itself. As it wants to expand, it needs to focus on acquiring customers. So sales and marketing is an absolute core activity for it. Central to differentiating itself versus other streaming sites, it wants to have a unique set of its own content. Otherwise, it's just selling the same products and same films and documentaries and video as everybody else. So it wants to create a point of differentiation. And of course, Technology doesn't stand still, and it constantly looks to improve how it delivers that video service, how it enables people to personalize that to their preferences. So it places a lot of money and research into how it does that. Zara is a clothing fashion company, a retailer. And what it's enabled itself to do versus its competitors is to understand the trends in the marketplace. It understands where and what is fashionable. It's got a very fast and lean manufacturing capability. And because of that, it can take a design and move it through its manufacturing process and get that clothing into a retail shop faster than any other fashion retailer. That gives it a huge competitive advantage. So Zara is focused on lean manufacturing, a really smooth delivery in terms of its retail process, and a very fast and efficient distribution channel. In terms of revenue streams, we're going to look at Twitch as a start point. It's a gaming platform. Gaming platforms have become incredibly popular, and people don't just play games, they enjoy watching good gamers perform and compete. Fans can watch their favourite players. It's a highly interactive platform, and it's got a huge global audience and has grown massively in the last 5 years. And as it's done so, it's been able to innovate how and what revenue it generates. So let's just take a look at Twitch in a bit more detail. Fans, Twitch users, can subscribe to their favourite channels. Channels are their favourite players or particular games. And the plans range from $4.99 to $24. So there's different levels that they offer. The fans can also buy merchandising goods. Advertising. So in other words, this is a niche community. Gaming is a very niche kind of like market. And Twitch offers the ability for brands within the gaming market to advertise their products or services. And bits are really interesting. They're like a Twitch currency. So Twitch fans can buy digital goods and actually use those to donate to their digital currency, emoticons, and donate to their favourite players. So they've really thought long and hard about different revenue streams, about how they can build their business. And quite often, when we look at revenue streams, there's a fixed way of doing it in a market. And what we're trying to do when we're innovating is rethink that process. Can we move from transaction to subscription? What other revenue streams can we generate?